You know what they need? They need an AO3 for strippers.
Welcome to Wow If True, the podcast of your wildest memes.
We're your one-stop internet culture shop, here to dissect what's going viral, why we care, and how this might affect our real human lives. I'm your guy on the Locus Awards ballot. Please vote for me, Isabel.
I'm Amanda, and it's really cold today. Anyone could be famous on the internet, so why not warm us up with that clout?
What was that?
I mean, the more followers you have on the internet, the warmer you are, canonically. That is a real thing.
This is how thermodynamics works.
Oh yeah, fluid dynamics, I know all about it.
No, I said thermodynamics. Jesus Christ. No, Keep listening to the podcast. We promise we're funny and know things.
Anyway, so you mentioned that we can vote for you for an award. What is that?
Oh, yeah, okay. So you can vote for me for the Locus Award, which is like a big science fiction book / other writing / fan writing / a lot of other things award, which is done basically every year. It's like the Hugo Award or the Nebula Award, except this is a one where anybody can vote for it. And you should vote for me because I'm on there 3 times, which is a lot of times to be on the ballot, which was very surprising to me.
Fuck yeah.
Because in my other life, I write about wizards, and sometimes people say, "Great job on the wizards, Isabel."
Great job on the wizards.
Thank you. But yeah, if you go to a really annoying URL, you could find it. We'll just put the link in the description.
Fuck yeah.
Because it's like locus.poll.survey or something. It's poll.voting.locusmag.com. So if you go there, you could say, "Great job on the wizards, Isabel," which I would appreciate a lot. It's also a good resource.
Great job on the wizards.
Thank you. It's also good if you just want to read some science fiction and want to see what's been published this year.
Fuck yeah.
In other self-promo news, which is way more important than this,
we have merch.
We finally have merch. Shout out to Aaron's husband for making merch before we made merch, which got us to go, shit, we gotta have merch.
So we have a member of our lovely Patreon community join our Patreon named Aaron. And then for the holidays, Aaron's husband signed up to our Patreon as Aaron's husband so that we would say Aaron's husband in the credits. And I don't know what Aaron's husband's name is, and I want to know his name because, like, he's a person, and, you know, like, yeah. But it's really funny to not know his name.
Yeah, we live in a universe where this man's name is just Aaron's husband, and that's just his identifier, and this is what we call feminism.
Anyway, we have actual merch now. We finally did the thing. We figured it out. You can go to wowiftrue.com/merch. And Isabel designed some very fun stuff. So tell us about your designs.
Yes. Okay, so we have a lot of cool stuff for you. I promise it's good. We wanted to make merch that was actually stuff you'd want to wear / hold / drink out of. You can choose which of these things to drink out of, by the way. If you want to drink out of the sweatshirt, I'm not going to stop you. But yes.
Yeah, we do have mugs for sale, but, like, you could drink out of a shirt or a sweatshirt or a tote.
We will not gatekeep this. You are free to do whatever you want with our merch. However, I will repost it on social media and be like, "Boy, what the fuck are you doing over there?" Okay, but what is it actually? So we have 3 designs for you right now, and 2 of them include word art, so you should go look at them. I'm not going to describe them here because I think they're better if you go look at them. So go to wowiftrue.com/merch. and check it out. But basically, it's a lot of word art. It's very cool. It's very zany. It's very a vaporwave, except for the one that says, "Just kill them," which is very pink and very cute and does suggest that you simply kill them. You can get...
But don't worry, because there's an asterisk on the shirt / mug that says this is not legal advice. So just, you know, you're good. You can wear it and just be like, hey, it's not legal advice. It's fine. But we're totally good.
But yes, so on the sweatshirts and t-shirts and stuff, and that come in multiple colors. Wow, multiple colors. The magic of the internet. You can get t-shirts and sweatshirts that say, like, "Welcome to Wow If True, the podcast of your wildest memes." You know, just classic. I'm saying it's classic. It looks wild.
So the thing about this is that you're describing this as, like, word art, and is there word art in it? Yes. However, like, Isabel is, like, legitimately a very good visual artist, and, like, so, you know, I mean, as we know, I minored in fine arts, but Isabel majored in fine arts, so, you know, like, this is legitimately good merch, but it is the aesthetic of, like, this is gaudy and, like, Y2K, but in, like, a cool, hip, fun way.
Right. So I went to the Korean spa with, like, 5 of my other friends. It might have been 5, it might have been 6. Most of them do not listen to podcasts. 4 out of 5 said that they would buy the merch.
And also, when you were at the Korean spa, you did, unplanned, run into one of our editors, David.
I did run into David at the Korean spa, which was very weird because David lives in Queens and this was in Jersey. So I was not expecting to see David at the Korean spa on, like, a random Saturday.
Do we know why he was at the Korean spa?
He was there with his other friends. Like, you know, regular. But they were friends we didn't know. So it was very much like that Always Sunny meme where you look across the room where, like, and they look back and you're just like, what's going on here? Except that wasn't with me. That was with a mole. Anyway. This is not a good merch ad. Buy our merch. Go look at it. I promise it's good. It's actually really cool. We're really psyched about it. You can get mugs. You can get sweatshirts. You can get tote bags. You can get t-shirts.
And the tote bags say, I listened to Wow If True and all I got was this sick tote.
It's a really sick tote. I don't know what to tell you.
I will say, Allison did pitch Amanda Went to Laos and all I got was this tote, but we unfortunately did not put that into production.
We decided that one was a little bit too much of a niche meme. However, if enough people ask for it, I will design it.
But yeah, we're very excited. The money from the merch is helpful in keeping the podcast going and paying our editors, and yeah, cool stuff. Support artists, I guess.
The money that comes from this is directly going into getting our editor to go to the Korean spa again, obviously.
Oh yeah, you know, we pay for David to go to the Korean spa. That's what the Patreon money's going towards also.
No, this is obviously to pay for Allison to go to the Korean spa, because, you know, that it's equality.
Yeah, I mean, how come David gets to go to the Korean spa and Allison hasn't gone to the Korean spa yet? We are such good, like, arbiters of good labor practices. Like, come on. Last just housekeeping update, and the most important housekeeping update. We are now 9 episodes away from episode 69.
Right, we're doing a countdown. To what? To 69.
Yeah. You know why? I don't know. It's fun.
You know, sometimes you just have to look forward to things in life, and sometimes those things are 69. Speaking of 69, sorry, horrible segue, stripper web.
That was a good segue.
Thank you.
Let's paint a word picture.
Okay.
You are Amanda. It is January. It's cold. You're feeling a little, having trouble finding motivation at work. And then you find out about a story that consumes you, that you spend day and night thinking about, that you go on a mission a la Sherlock Holmes to uncover the truth behind Stripper Web, a 20-year-old forum in which strippers, sex workers, cam girls, all types of that industry, people are talking about what are their experiences like, what TV are they watching in their spare time, what's their dating life like, how do you stay safe working in a club. And this forum existed for 20 years, and people made serious community and serious friendships, and, like, we're all listening to this podcast. We all know that you can make some very meaningful relationships on the internet, especially when you are in a profession like stripping and maybe don't have a lot of IRL people to be honest about what you're doing with. And you have these elder people that are like, here's how you stay safe. Customer does this weird thing. Here's what you do to, like, still get his money, but quash that weird thing. And suddenly, this 20-year-old community, one day, everybody logs in, and they see a message. For over 20 years, Stripper Web has been one of the best resources for exotic dancers and webcam models on the internet. We've made the difficult decision to close Stripper Web, effective February 1st. We urge you all to check out Amber Cutie's forum as a possible new home after we close. Thank you to everyone who has made this such an amazing community. Naturally, this fascinated me. I found out about it because I saw some people posting on Twitter, like, what the fuck? Like, why is Stripper Web closing? And then I went on an expedition to find out what happened and who is this owner that is closing it. And The more questions I asked, the more questions I uncovered in my Pulitzer Prize-winning investigation of stripperhood. I'm sorry, I'm in a weird
No,
mood,
no, that
but,
was good. Keep that voice. This is really adding something to this
yeah,
podcast.
yeah, outside of me being dramatic, genuinely, like, this is such an interesting story to me because it gets at, one, like, niche internet community, love it. Two, there are actual social implications to shutting down this community because you're taking a group of people that have already been historically marginalized on the internet, and there is such a history, particularly among online sex work, of people being pushed from platform to platform as laws change around internet sex work, as platforms decide they're afraid of big MasterCard being angry at them, etc. And, like, this is just kind of a microcosm of the way that sex is marginalized on the internet and how it affects people that are just trying to, like, make a living in a way that works for them.
Yeah, what's crazy to me here is that it's been around for 20 years, and that's because there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, it's like, I think this is such a relic of old internet, and that there can be a 20-year-old site that you have no idea exists that is incredibly important to a specific community. Like, that's like, that feels almost foreign to the way we use the internet today, where it's like, you go to like your 4 sites, and they're all aggressively capitalist.
In my article, I have some screenshots of, like, what stripper web looks like, and it's just this, like, very gaudy pink
It's
forum.
so Y2K. It's so Y2K.
So Y2K. Like, this website looks like it was made in 2002, and that's because it was.
And that's, like, honestly, like, that's the other thing about this, is that this website has, like, so much of sex work has changed over the last 20 years on account of the internet existing at all and being, like, popularized and being a part of our daily lives, and the rules around, like you said, the rules around sex work just changing constantly because people are really Puritan, and also, like, legislators just make decisions. They're just making decisions. And the fact that, like, this has been, like, really fucked up in a lot of ways, that, like, something that was a repository of, like, history, of, like, this 20-year-old history is just down, and that can just happen.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I find most interesting about this, is that this is sort of like an oral folk history of sex work for the last 20 years. And, like, again, these are just professions that are often considered taboo, that people aren't really talking about, and hearing what life is like in those professions directly from the people that are doing it is so valuable. And, like, I talked to some people that were moderators of the forum, or people that have been lurking on the forum for 10 years while, like, doing their own work, but then just didn't really ever post, because some people aren't posters, some people are. And it was also just so interesting to hear about, like, so people were saying, like, if you work at a strip club, like, in the dressing room, that's kind of where all the dancers, like, tell stories and, like, share secrets. Like, theoretically, if you're in a club where people have a good working relationship and there's not, like, petty drama among people, which happens in every job. But so this one girl I talked to, Marla Cruz, was saying that, like, she learned from stripper web and from dancers, like, in the dressing room about how did the 2008 recession affect stripping? She lived through the pandemic as a stripper, but, like, how did that affect people? And, like, when people were worrying about the pandemic, they were reflecting on 2008. And then even stuff like, how did changing policies about Cuban immigration impact the racial makeups of clubs in South Florida? And it's like, there's just such a, like, social, political, economic history embedded in this that I find so fascinating. And these are histories that you can only learn from talking to people or, like, reading this forum. And there were people that were referring to it as a digital museum. And I think that is true. And I think that there's so much that we stand to lose when these legacy internet sites get quashed.
Yeah, did anybody actually, like, back it up or anything?
So that was another thing I found really interesting, was there were dancers that were literally, like, learning Python to write scripts to, like, scrape the website. And then, like, I get comments on the article, like, they didn't teach themselves Python in a day. And I'm like, okay, but you're underestimating, like, I always say that sex workers are the smartest people on the internet because it's true. Like, I've written a lot of stories about internet sex workers and I've talked to a lot of them, and they're always just, like, so on their shit about, like, how to use the internet, how do laws work, how do you keep yourself anonymous. Like, nobody knows the internet better than sex workers. And it's an insult to be like, oh, they can't figure out how to do Python. And maybe even if they can't teach themselves a programming language in a day, they know people that can help them. Like, one of the girls I talked to, her partner knows how to code. So she had, like, 2 laptops up running, scraping data for, like, 12 hours at a time, which, like, her partner was helping her with it, but, like, she was still doing it. And so now on the Internet Archive, they did scrape a good deal of it, but I don't know if they scraped the entire thing, but they did get the first page of a lot of threads.
Right, so, you know, I mean, that's what happens when you have, like, 20 years of data to scrape, I guess. Yeah, you know, like, I feel like stuff like this really, like, I think we've talked about this on a podcast before, but, like, it talks about, like, first of all, the dangers of, like, creating a community on a site that is controlled by somebody else who can change the rules on you at any moment. And I think this is a very, like, extreme example of it, where it's like, okay, we're just shutting down. But it could also be like, oh, we're changing the rules and now X can't be posted. And that happens constantly. Like, we've talked about that, where it's like, you know, the Tumblr porn ban, stuff like that. And the other thing is that, like, we talk about stuff on the internet like it's going to be there forever. But the internet is actually, like, probably the worst repository of information if you want to keep that for more than, like, a little bit of time. It has, like, incredible reach, but, like, 100 years from now, like, just shit's gone.
Yeah. It's interesting how simultaneously it feels like the internet is permanent, but the internet can also be so impermanent, as this story shows. And so speaking of, like, dealing with ownership of these platforms, that's one of the most interesting things about this story that is going to haunt me for the rest of my days, is nobody knows who owned Stripperweb. Even I talked to moderators that have been, like, on the mod team for over a decade, and they don't know who it is. And I tried everything to contact them. Like, I was working with our cybersecurity editor to, like, make sure I was doing all the right internet sleuthing things. And some people just don't want to be found, and sometimes you just can't find them. But I was trying to learn more about how this forum started and who started it. And there used to be an FAQ page that gave this information that no longer exists. However, it does exist reprinted in the master's thesis from 2006 of now Dr. Lisa Monchelin, who is now a professor at Kwantlen Polytechnic University in British Columbia, working on criminology. Also, fun fact about her, I tried talking to her, but she's on leave, so it didn't work out. But she is apparently the first doctor of criminology who is Indigenous. And that's fun because she's Canadian and Indigenous, just like Allison, who is editing this episode.
I feel like there's been a lot of talk about our podcast editors in this episode. Hi, Allison. Bye, Allison.
But I just thought that was a cool fun fact. So, like, she seems like a very girl boss, parentheses, appreciative, but she wrote her master's thesis in 2006 where she analyzed conversations on Stripperweb and, like, assigned kind of, like, number values and data to, like, based on, like, what they were talking about, and then, like, analyzed the data to figure out, like, what are the motivations of sex workers. Like, one of the misconceptions is that people do this work just because they need money and it's a last resort, but her data in 2006 showed that oftentimes that wasn't the case. And anyway, so for my purposes, this paper was super interesting because in one of the appendices, she included, like, copy-pasted information about the founding of Stripperweb that is no longer online. So apparently, in 2001, a college student named Price, who would do web development on the side, befriended a stripper, and she was telling him about how there were 2 forums at the time. One of them was like very big but just had like no real moderation, and then one of them was pretty good but it was just so small that no one really knew it was there. And so they decided to make their own forum, which became StripperWeb, and it opened in early 2002, and then by 2013 Price just disappeared. Like, he just stepped down. Apparently he was dating a stripper who was also a early moderator on the website under the name Girl Friday, which I remember because I spent like an hour trying to find her on other sites. But again, they're smart. She didn't use Girl Friday as her username anywhere else, to my knowledge. So they made this website, and there's this 2013 post that sticks out to me because it's Price's last post, and he's talking about the 10-year anniversary of the website, and then he mentions that a quote-unquote the other owner is responsible for financially keeping the site alive. And then he references some other dude names like Bob and Wayne, who are guys that are like on the team doing stuff. But then they also had a team of moderators who are like actual like people in the community and not just like random men. Because back in the day, they had the pink forum and the blue
the pink forum and the blue forum stuff was crazy. When I was reading your article and I was like, there was... First of all, I love the color coding. Second, insane that there was like a split where it's like, okay, the boys are here, the customers are here. The fact that there were customers there at all was wild.
One of the people I talked to who goes by Taja Ethereal, she was a moderator on the site for like over 10 years. She offered $12,000 to buy the site, and they didn't respond to her.
Interesting. Which implies that whatever amount of money was in there, it's more than $12,000. I mean, I'm not actually super surprised about that, because you see how much like AO3 has to raise every year to keep the site running, and I don't know, like, keeping something up that a lot of people are using is expensive. Like, there's just a lot of shit you need to do for that. There's a lot of shit you need to pay for. This isn't really what the podcast is about right now, so I'm not going to go into it. But, like, it doesn't surprise me that there was, like, outside investment in this, but also the concept of the other owner is just so ominous in its stating. And also, like, honestly kind of reminds me of, like, my job, where it's, like, there's shell companies, and there's shell companies, and then you finally get to the guy who owns it at the top.
Oh my god, it's like a SPAC.
Yeah, it's like a SPAC. It's a SPAC, but for...
SPACs are so
it's a
funny.
SPAC, but it's for...
Have we explained what a SPAC is on the podcast? Because it's fake. Like, if you think money's real, just wait till you learn about a SPAC.
I like that this is a podcast where we can pivot from StripperWeb to SPACs, and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, sex work and SPACs, the 2 S's. In brief, just to, like, close the loop on the joke for those who aren't fucking nerds. When you take a company public, you can do so by merging with a company that only exists for the purpose of merging. Like, you can start another company and then be like, okay, we're merging, and then we're going public via merging. You make a fake company and then merge with it.
Like, it's honestly, like, not worth it for most people to just create a company, but you can just do that. Price left. What happened?
Yeah, so after that, there was just an owner that nobody knew who it was. There was the super secret owner. There was the secret super mod. Like, this all sounds like stuff out of, like, Netflix.
Yeah, like, this is, like, a lot. This is, like...
Where there's, like...
It's very, like TV hacking.
Yeah, I don't know. And there was drama about the blue forum and the pink forum, where some of the mods had asked Price before he left to, like, change the permissions so that blue people couldn't come over to the pink people and, like, bother them, because that was happening, and he was like, nah. And so basically this website, as far as we know, has always been in the hands of men who are not themselves in this industry. They are just people that, like, their girlfriend is in it, or they think sex is cool. And, like, I think that this shows how when people from a community don't have ownership over the platforms that they're using to make their community, then it harms them. And then now there's all these splinter forums, and they're all trying to figure out, like, where to converge.
You know what they need? They need an AO3 for strippers. Because this really reminds me of the way that, like, the fandom community like hops from forum to forum, depending on what site is being cool to them and is not being bought by Russia. Rip LiveJournal.
R.I.P. LiveJournal. You know, I mean, it is the
Yeah,
same
it's like
thing
the
that's
exact
happening.
same thing. They need an AO3, but for strippers. Because, like, you know, that's... No, because that's what AO3 was. It was like, okay, we're sick of, like, you know, being subject to both, A, like, big market forces, and B, like, individuals having to just host shit on their site. And then if that individual doesn't want to have that site anymore, it's just all gone. And so it's like, okay, we're going to make AO3. It'll be an organization. It's been a fucking institution. Like, I mean, that's what they need. Not to tell the strippers how to do their jobs. I'm sure that they'll figure it out. Because, you know, as you say, the smartest people on the internet.
Yeah, and there are some stripper-run forums that have now emerged or, like, gotten some more traction. And I think the last point I want to make about this is that one of the people I interviewed pointed out that maybe the people that were running the website didn't like the idea of a bunch of sex workers having sort of, like, an unofficial union where this was a place where they talked about labor issues. They talked about which clubs to avoid, which clubs you should, like, keep an eye out for them not paying you or something. And, like, there was a lot of discourse that maybe the people owning clubs wouldn't want people to have a central place to talk about. And also, we're in a time when we will soon have the only stripper union, potentially. Last year, dancers at Star Garden in North Hollywood went on strike for 8 months, and then the National Labor Relations Board ruled that they can conduct a union election through the Actors Equity Union, sort of basically saying, like, hey, we're performers too, so we should be able to unionize, like, as a group of performers. And their vote is coming up soon, and if they win, this will be the first club to unionize since 2013, when the Lusty Lady Club in San Francisco was closed. You have to think, like, you have so many people offering to pay to run the site, and you're just gonna ignore them and not really care about the archives being deleted, and, like, who would have the motivation to not care about that? People who don't want the archives to be there, who are often the men in power that run these clubs.
Right. Like, I mean, it's just speculation, but it's speculation that makes sense, especially in the context that it's in. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that makes sense. It's like a union-like thing that provides information that people empower the men in power. That sounds like really dramatic. The clubs would probably not be happy about.
So that's the story of Stripperweb. Could not figure out who owns the forum or why they closed it, but sometimes the best questions are left unanswered. Except that this impacts actual people and they deserve answers.
Yeah, and if we find out, we'll tell you.
Being taken away from them.
If we find out, we'll tell you. If you know, tell us. If you're listening and you know, tell us.
Are you listening and you are the owner of Stripperweb? Slide into our DMs and tell us.
Yeah, this reminds me of a completely, like, way less serious thing. Like, 2 days ago, this big site, it's not a big site, but it's a site that's been around for 26 years, closed abruptly without any notice. And the site was basically a market update survey for the science fiction community, basically saying when are specific publishers and, like, of short fiction and sometimes long form fiction and, like, anthologies and stuff, when are they open, when are they closed. It has been around for 26 years. It is as old as I am. And they closed the other day.
It's older than Stripperweb.
No, it's older than Stripperweb. And it also looked like it came from, like, the 2000s it looks like it's from 1999, which, for obvious reasons. And then they left just saying, this website is now closed. To all that have sent in market news over the last 26 years and 57 days, a gracious thanks. Good luck to you all. All in caps. Like, this is obviously a very different situation because everybody knows who this guy is. And everybody, like, everyone likes this dude. He updates the market shit. And, like, a lot of people over the last 26 years who are now, like, famous science fiction authors and stuff like that have used this site to first do their market research because it's for free, it's online. It lists everything in a weird format that is actually very readable once you understand it, and they never updated their site. It doesn't matter a ton these days because there's also Duotrope and there's a submission grinder and there's a bunch of other people giving this information. But it's like, yeah, One guy can just decide that actually after 26 years and 57 days, we're done here. And that's one of the good and bad things about the internet.
Was there any sort of discourse about, like, well, what if these people take it over? Or did people just kind of decide, like, we can just let it be?
People afterwards were like, oh yeah, I'm surprised he didn't ask if anyone wanted to take over the site. But I think this is actually a very different situation than Stripper Web, because it's, first of all, it's not like a forum, it's just a site that has news. And in the last 26 years, there have been many other sites that have similar information. So I think part of it is that he felt like, okay, I don't need to give this to anybody. Someone else is already doing similar stuff. And that may or may not be true. I actually don't know the guy who runs it, like, personally or anything. But, yeah, it's like, you know, sometimes things last for 26 years and then they get shut down. Also, I was thinking about, like, what you said about, like, union-like things. And, like, I feel this is a weird, like, comparison to make between, like, strippers and science fiction authors. On the other hand, both of these people are doing stuff on the internet, and, like, as are we all. And another union-like thing is, like, the Science Fiction Writers of America, which has, like, forums and shit like that, is not a union, but people pay into it and they set market rates. So, I don't know. This is nothing. Allison, cut this.
There is a reason why this sort of thing is helpful, because if you look at journalism, there's no set rate for what freelancers should be making. So sometimes people that are getting into freelancing ask me, like, what should I be aiming to make per article? And I'm just like, that is such a complicated question that I cannot even begin to answer. And I'm sure it's complicated in sci-fi too, because there's some stories that maybe take a bit more lifting to write. Maybe there are some stories where you're like...
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's interesting because it actually is completely set what rate you're going to get. Because if you want to be listed as a pro market, you need to pay at least X amount. So most people pay X amount because that's the lowest you can pay getting to be a pro market. And, like, I'm saying that this without any shade. Science fiction magazines run on, like, paper thin margins, and it's actually a really good thing that money flows to the author is one of the big, like, tenets of the industry. But yeah, no, it's like a similar thing. I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking more now about how, like, very niche professions always have, like, whisper networks or, like, a forum or something like that, and most of the time that's something hosted by a third party. And how if that collapses, then you lose all that institutional knowledge. And, like, I feel like this is, like, exciting to people because it's strippers, and that's, like, interesting to people. And that's an interesting piece of news because I think anytime anyone talks about sex work, everyone gets very excited. But, like, this could happen to, you know, this could happen to your weird Slack channel. This could happen to your Discord server. So, I don't know, something own the means of production. I don't know.
Yeah, like, for example, speaking of the people behind the scenes on our podcast, Sam, who made our podcast music, is on a Halo forum from, like 15 years ago.
Holy shit.
Which, first off, Sam, get off the Halo forum. You're an adult.
Damn!
Two.
The man makes our podcast music, and you tell him to get off his Halo forum?
I don't like first-person shooters, what can I say? But, like, I mean, there are extremely less consequences of a Halo forum collapsing. But, like, that would be weird for the people if they log on one day and it's gone and they're like, how do we find each other? Like, what's going on?
We talk a lot about, like, old internet being better than new internet. It's really hard to find people from old internet if you don't, like, know who they are or if they don't give contact information. I don't have anything more interesting to say about that other than I would like to know who the owner of Stripper Web was. But sometimes you don't get to learn things. Speaking of ownership, let's talk about, like, big companies being like, actually, about ownership. And also just, like, completely rescinding on that. Because, like, just OGL update, because we talked about the OGL last week. We promised not to talk about D&D for 40 minutes again, because we're already kind of running out of time.
Yeah, we already named an episode Dungeons and Dragons and Donkey.
Yeah, and we can't do better than that. That's as good as we're gonna get. They were just kind of like, they went even further on the OGL, and they were like, actually, it's regular again. Like, I feel like that's actually kind of like the summary of it. It's regular again. Yeah. Sorry about all the confusion.
I think that when we talked last episode, it was right after they announced Creative Commons ? And now it is Creative Commons period. Dungeons & Dragons 5e is under the Creative Commons. It is a 400-page document. Update on me being like, what if I sent this to people in prisons that want D&D? I don't know why it didn't occur to me how long D&D is.
Sending them a 400-page tome in the mail. They just receive a brick. Honestly, I think you should do it. I think the postage would be like exorbitant, but I would be very happy to receive it, you know? That's 400 pages.
It's what the people want. But, like, are the actual D&D books that long?
No, because
like,
that's because the
I feel
D&D
like the
books
D&D
separated
books
out
aren't
into,
that
like,
long.
different parts. Like, the actual D&D, the OG, like, rule set is not super long, and then there's, like, a million other parts to it that you can just, like, add on. I actually don't know. I only look at it online.
But then it's like you have all the spells. Like, how would you condense D&D into something that is, like, printable?
People have, like, spell cards and stuff. What you should do is I think you should, like, send them, like, rules, and then you should send them, like, the spell cards. Anyway, this is getting off topic. OGL is... What?
I just said, I don't know. I'm just, like, imagining me sending a 400-page tome.
I think that's really funny, and I think you should do that. I think that's what the people want.
Yeah, I think maybe the initial idea of collecting a bunch of one-pagers from people who consent to publishing them is maybe a more feasible thing to send in the mail.
We're really just doing crimes to the Postal Service.
Postal Service crimes, sending D&D 5e.
God, just send a brick in the mail, it's fine. Other stuff that got rescinded, Netflix was like, no password sharing, just kidding, password sharing. Everyone got really mad about it. I mean, I guess that's irrelevant in that everybody got really mad about it, but I think this really just signals that Netflix is at the stage of a company where they start like actively fucking with their product too much and are not going to do good. Don't buy Netflix stock, maybe? This is not legal or financial advice.
Yeah, this is not legal or financial advice, but I agree with Isabel. Index funds only, baby.
Yeah, no, buy VOO. No, do not. This is not legal or financial advice. Again, cannot state this enough.
Buy stock in Wow If True by buying our merch. Asterisk. There is no stock. By buying our merch, you get the merch itself and no further stake in our LLC that does not exist.
The interesting thing about Netflix, though, is that I feel like they've created this situation for themselves where people will not start watching new shows because they cancel them immediately.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, that's an insane problem for you to create for yourself as something that calls living and dying on the strength of its like catalog. Like, what an insane situation to be like, actually things that people like, no, that's all I got.
And while we're still in D&D world, there is a small update that we have to talk about under the original Wow If True quest of let's get famous on the internet. So there is a new podcast coming out called Worlds Beyond Number. It is an independent D&D actual play podcast with Brennan Lee Mulligan, Abria Iyengar, Erica Ishii, and Lou Wilson, who are all, like, big deal people in D&D. And I interviewed them.
Amanda, you can't advertise other podcasts on our podcast with more famous people than us.
They're getting, like, $10,000 a month. Isn't that, like, bullshit? Or no, they're getting, like, more than... They're getting, like, $50,000 a month. I don't know why I said $10,000.
Why aren't we getting $50,000 a month? Damn.
Yeah.
You can't advertise for them.
They got like 10,000 patrons. We have like 10 patrons. No, just kidding. We have like 40. But you can join us, and we will appreciate you more than Brennan Lee Mulligan appreciates his patrons.
As a percentage, you will be a greater percentage of our success than you will of Brennan Lee Mulligan's success. No, just kidding. He's great.
Yeah. But so I interviewed them, and I'm not like deep into the D&D actual play world, but like I know they're big deals, but my friends were like very excited.
Yeah, because they're like a huge deal. They're like the deal.
Yeah.
See, I'm the guy here to be the hype man about this because I am in the actual play like fandom community, and everyone I know is fucking obsessed with them.
You write fanfic for beep.
I used to. I haven't done that in 2 years.
Yeah, well, whatever.
That is a part of my past. Now I'm on the Locus Award recommended reading list.
From beep fanfic to the Locust Award reading list. The Isabel J. Kim story. Anyway, so my friend who DMs our campaign and is a very good DM, my friend Dan, they were like, you have to tell Brennan Lee Mulligan about Skelebrimbor, which is an NPC they made up who is a skeleton who is self-aware about being in a D&D campaign. And then I kind of like made an offhanded comment in the interview like, oh, like people are so excited for this. Like my friends are all really excited. When I told them I was interviewing you guys, they were like, oh, you have to tell them about our NPCs. And I was like, what? And then Brennan was like, what skeleton NPC? And like, I wouldn't have gone into detail if he wasn't genuinely interested, but like, all 4 of them were like, tell us more. And like they were like asking follow-up questions. And,
it's a good NPC.
Yeah.
They're right. It's also a Lord of the Rings joke. It's good.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was a Lord of the Rings joke. You know when
this is wasted on you. This is all wasted on you.
Yeah, it's like, when there's a Lord of the Rings joke in your D&D campaign and Brennan Lee Mulligan has to tell you it's a Lord of the Rings joke.
This is all wasted on you. So
I'm making so many people so mad right now. But so I thought that was the end of it, where it was just like a funny thing that we had this little conversation. Like, I recorded the interview for journalism purposes, and then I played it to my friends in our campaign, and I was like, look, they're talking about Celebrimbor, and it was like very fun and cool. But then when I posted the article, Brennan Lee Mulligan responds to my tweet and says, Celebrimbor!
This...
And then all of them just start tweeting me about Celebrimbor. And
Amanda, you are living so many people's dream right now, and it is completely wasted on you. Okay, not completely, but it is partially wasted on you.
Yeah. Erica Ishii sent me a Care Bears gift.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, so that's that was my weird moment of like, this is a big deal, but I can't totally grasp how big a deal it is, but I do think I am going to print out the Brennan Lee Mulligan Celebrimbor tweet and, like, frame it and give it
That's
to
really
Dan.
good. That's funny.
Yeah, I also did see his cat, which is named, what is it named? Digit? His cat just, like, jumped on him in the middle of the interview, and I was like...
As the cat should. Now the interview is about the cat.
He was also drinking out of a mug with a D20 on it.
Yeah.
I feel like people probably just send him a lot of things with D20s on them. It's like how my best friend Zoe, who listens to the podcast now, when you convince your best friend to listen to your podcast, but Zoe is a queer influencer and thus receives like a ton of stuff with rainbows on it. And then I'm like, sometimes I see like cute rainbow things and I'm like, oh, I should get this for Zoe. And I'm like, is Zoe tired of rainbows? Like, on one hand, they wear a ton of rainbows. On the other hand, is this because every day they are simply sent things with rainbows on them?
Okay, but like they don't have to wear them if they get them.
I do think Zoe likes rainbows, but like, I don't know if I need to contribute to the quantity of rainbow things. Anyway.
You could just ask Zoe. Zoe listens to the podcast now, so Zoe's probably going to text you and be like, hey, this is my feelings on rainbows.
Let me know how you feel about rainbow things.
We've gotten wildly off topic. What were we talking about?
Brennan Lee Mulligan. But I think we're done with the Brennan Lee Mulligan segment, and now it's time for the Jewish culture segment of the podcast, which is we are mentioning Seinfeld, which is the pinnacle of Jewish culture.
Okay. I wasn't sure where you were going with that, but then when you said Seinfeld, and I was like, actually, that completely tracked. Yeah, AI Seinfeld. Infinite fucking Seinfeld.
Yeah, so this thing went viral on the internet this week. It's called Nothing Forever. It is the show about nothing, Seinfeld Forever, because it is AI generated and never ending, unless if like the stream dies and they have to like put it back up or something. The dialogue is ChatGPT. It's GPT-3, not ChatGPT, but it's like the same technology. They're using like Microsoft services to get the voices, and it's just these two guys that are like making this thing for fun. One of them is like a product manager at Microsoft, and the other one is a polymer physicist, which is just very funny.
Two casual guys making a casual thing for fun. This makes sense that they knew how to put this together. Like, that kind of tracks.
Yeah. And
also kind of tracks that they did it with Seinfeld, because they seem like they're in the age bracket where this is very funny for them.
Yeah, and I think it really works well as Seinfeld, because the whole thing of Seinfeld is it is the show about nothing. And also they made the point of how there was a period of time in like the 90s, early 2000s when like because Seinfeld was syndicated, you turn on the TV and Seinfeld is simply always on. But then their AI version of it is also always on because it is just generating itself constantly. And so they kind of renamed the characters. They made it like Larry Feinberg instead of Jerry Seinfeld, which is already kind of a nod to Larry David, my religious hero, Larry David of the Jews. And again, I, Amanda, speak on behalf of all Jewish people. No, just kidding, I don't. But yeah, so there's like Larry Feinberg, there's Fred Kostopoulos instead of George Costanza. The best one is instead of Cosmo Kramer, it's Zoltan Kakler.
That's good.
It's
That's
so
really good.
But like, so the show itself is bad. It is.
I love the confidence with which you say it. I completely agree. With some of it, it's not good.
It is bad. Like, it basically alternates between scenes. You have the Jerry Seinfeld character, Larry Feinberg, like, doing stand-up like he does in the actual show, except the jokes he's telling when he's doing stand-up are, like, he tells the same jokes over and over again, which sort of forms an in-joke in the community, which one of the jokes he tells all the time is, what do you call a bear with no teeth? A gummy bear.
Boo.
What did the fish say when it swam into the wall?
Damn.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, sometimes he'll tell stories, but it's like every scene is just so repetitive, and they just make jokes like, did you hear about the new grocery store? And then they talk about the new grocery store, to the point that there is now a fan-made wiki that has a list of new things. And it's just like, new grocery store, new shake shop, new taco stand. And, like, I don't know why the AI just always wants to talk about, like, there's a new restaurant in town.
Well, this is actually what real people talk about, so I'm actually not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, honestly, like, I get it.
Yeah, and so I wrote about this and I compared it to Twitch Plays Pokemon, because I do think it is the same thing. Like, the inherent concept of Twitch Plays Pokemon and of Nothing Forever, it's like, oh, haha, that's funny, and, like, you want to watch it for, like, 5 minutes, but then it's like, alright, like, we get it. It's people collaboratively playing Pokemon. It is an AI-generated Seinfeld. And the thing that makes it interesting is the community that forms around it, because it was like, with Twitch Plays Pokemon, it was, you type arrows or, like, A and B in the chat, and you are controlling the character in Pokemon Red, and then it becomes complicated because you have so many people controlling it at the same time, and then it just turns into absolute anarchy. You were able to vote on an anarchy mode or, like, co-op mode or something, where one of them was, like, whatever you type in, that's it. One of them was, like, you vote for what to do.
Yeah, that was anarchy versus co-op, yep. But yeah. the thing about, like, Twitch Plays Pokemon is that, like, everyone started to create meaning out of noise, if that makes sense, because, like, a million people, like, it wasn't a million, but, like, you know, like, a zillion people, like, typing into the chat telling Red what to do created some, like, movements that were just completely, they seemed arbitrary and random, and because certain buttons would get pressed more than others. Like, for example, he would continue to pull out the Helix fossil, but then the meaning that people created behind this was that the Helix fossil is now our god. And that's what people are doing with Seinfeld, with AI Seinfeld.
People fucking invented religion in Twitch Plays Pokemon, and it's funny how, like, I feel like people are always doing this, and it's like, is this how religion was created, like, period? Like, people are just trying to find meaning around things that have no meaning.
I mean, yes, that is inherently that is what the human condition is about. It's about pattern matching to create, like, meaning out of noise, right? Because, like, what we are is essentially, we are very complicated pattern matching machines that are creating a story in our head, something that is narrative in time to explain what has happened in the past. And then, like, any sort of narrative that you're creating is basically a way to explain the inherent, like, chaos around you. Send tweet.
You're onto something, but even in the Seinfeld AI, they also created somewhat of a deity, which is the microwave.
Oh, tell me more.
So,
what?
There's a microwave in Larry's apartment, and it is one of the only items that they can, like, randomly interact with. I think they can also open the refrigerator. Like, they're just kind of walking around, like, falling inside of couches because they made the animation on Unity, and it sucks.
Yeah, the other thing they say here is that it looks like pixel art. It does not look like Seinfeld.
Yeah. Like, it looks like shit, but I think it's supposed to look like shit, maybe? But
I think it's, like, I think that was deliberate. Yeah. I think that's, like, deliberate art style that is bad but easy for the computer to do is kind of my understanding of it.
Yeah.
Don't ask me. I am not a physicist or whatever the guy was.
Yeah, but so there's a microwave in Larry's apartment, and the characters just always walk over to it and press buttons on it, and then it goes brrrr. whatever.
Oh, so that's God now.
Yeah, so
they're creating deities here.
Yeah, there's
Great.
like a fandom around the microwave now.
People are weird.
Yeah. And yeah, I think both of these, the defining factor for me is the community that forms around it is more interesting than the thing itself. And I have to say, as someone who I have experienced the thing where you're just doing something and then you wake up and you've gone super viral and journalists want to talk to you about it. I'm referring to my college activism days, which you witnessed and were a part of. And I don't think people talk enough about how when you go viral in that manner, something happens to you where you kind of become God. Where...
Whoa, that is not where I was expecting you to go with that sentence.
Like,
what? Let's unpack that.
You just kind of... It is unavoidable that when this is happening, your ego just inflates and you just sort of become, like, filled with this, like, zeal of, like, I'm gonna change everything.
That was an insane thing to say.
Because we were just talking about gods. I didn't think I was a god. I just made exaggerations. I never thought I was a god, but I did think, like, yeah, I'm gonna, like, change college culture, and this is, like, I'm putting my stick in the ground, and, like, there's gonna be no more, like, frat sexism because I'm doing a thing. But, like, no, I mean, it started some conversations around it, but obviously, like, nothing really changed. But I think that's what's happening with the people that made this, because now they're doing interviews where they're like, we want to make the Netflix of generative shows, and, like, I don't think that's gonna work. And Twitch Plays Pokemon kind of did the same thing, where after the initial Pokemon Red run, they went through, like, all the games, but nobody talks about that because, like, we did it. It was fun while it lasted, and then we moved on, and I think that's gonna happen with Seinfeld too, because, like, it's not interesting to watch. Like, it's not good.
It's like, actually, this thing sucks. And, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting concept, but it's a concept that you can do once when it's interesting. And if you try to replicate it with other shit, it's not interesting anymore.
And I think this is extremely gimmicky art, but it's like they're the first people to do the gimmicky art, so it makes it cool. It's like them doing it is cool. If somebody else replicates it, it'll be like, okay, whatever. But
no, but also, like, I mean, we all know that, like, ye old Netflix is going to, like, cash in its chips on using, like, AI for creating content. Like, let's be real. Like, this is coming. It will just not come in the form that AI Seinfeld is in right now.
Yeah, and I just don't think people want that, though, because I think there's still such a long way to go, if it's even possible, to make, like, genuinely interesting stories, like, only using AI. Because the stories on the AI Seinfeld right now are, there's a new restaurant in town. Do you want to go? Okay, let's go.
No, yeah, you know what's interesting about a lot of AI text creation is that it's very predictable. People do what they're expected to do. This is the Isabel talks about storytelling portion of the episode, which I did not expect to get into, but because it's been a big debate in some of the circles I'm in on whether using AI is cool or bad. Is it cool and good, or is it bad and evil to use AI in your work? And I talked about this on the pod before, but, like, there's a real split decision here between people who are making their, like, creative output through very similar reams of text, if that makes sense. Like, if you're writing something formulaic, then even if it's a story, then it's actually very helpful to have AI do it for you. Like, let's not go into the copyright stuff, but if you just need something that's, like, the same thing or similar stuff all the time, or if you're tired of trying to come up with ways to describe this guy's eyes, then AI is actually very good at that. Or, like, some AIs are very good at that. But if you're trying to do something where you're surprising the reader, then it's bad. Or if you're writing because you're trying to figure out what you want to say, then it's also bad. Like, I've played around with it. We did some scripts for WoW if True with it. And, like, the big thing that stands out to me with, like, AI, like, scripting and AI, like, narratives is that they follow the most likely path for a conversation to take. And they follow the most likely path for a story to take, because with some noise from the fact that, like, the AI is not creating a story, the AI is just pattern matching to these things come together most often in this format. I'm not describing how this works technically at all. I'm just describing the output. But because of that, you don't actually get anything like very interesting most of the time, unless it's something that's interesting because it's like, oh, it's weird that a computer is making it and it made it happen like this. That's kind of my opinion on that. And I think but I also think that that's probably enough for a lot of companies. This is where I get into the dystopian part of it, where I'm like, people want to see more of what they've seen before. And a lot of people who are consuming content don't really care where it comes from in like aggregate. And I'm not even thinking about like the whole show is going to be made with AI. I'm thinking about the backgrounds are all AI or that sort of thing. Anyway, that's my rant. It doesn't really go anywhere, but that's okay. That's what podcasting is.
Hell yeah. Anyway, I don't think I'm gonna watch AI Frasier is the point I'm making. Hello, it's Amanda. I have a brief update that since we recorded this episode, Nothing Forever was actually suspended from Twitch for 14 days. This is because there was a lapse in the content moderation protocol that is part of the AI dialogue generator that they were using, and as a result, Larry gave in a transphobic stand-up routine, and they were banned. So, to get a bit more into the tech, what happened was they were using the GPT-3 Da Vinci model, and then that started having some issues, so they switched to the Curie model, which is pretty similar, except you have to manually add in OpenAI's content filtering protocol, which basically prevents things like this from happening, but they added it incorrectly. The creators say that this was an accident. They don't endorse these views, but yeah, there's just something kind of dystopian and dark about this situation where it feels like Twitch is more adequately responding to AI transphobia than real people transphobia targeting real people. But I don't know, man. The internet's weird. Transphobia's bad. That's what happened. We have a few quick hits before we wrap it up. Tell me about Cecil.
Oh, yeah. Wait, tell me what you know about Cecil.
I know that Cecil...
He's the Tumblr sexy man.
Well, I thought it was the Tumblr Sexy Woman contest, because as we've talked on the podcast before, there was the Tumblr Sexy Man contest, which sans Undertale, a pixelated skeleton, won.
No, he didn't.
Oh.
The Tumblr... Here, there have been... Oh, wait, this is going to take a while. I'll give you the quick hits. First of all, Twitter ran a Tumblr Sexy Man contest a while back, which Reagan won. Reagan is from Mob Psycho 100, a very good anime and also manga that you should read /watch. You should watch it because it's a very good piece of animation and is actually a heartwarming story, and I love it to bits. However, conman, fake psychic mentor Reagan, who Studio Bones, the animation studio, has like an incredible boner for, because I cannot stress enough, he's not drawn sexily in the original manga. But in the anime, they were like, you know who we want as our thirst trap? You know who the only person here we can make into a thirst trap is? It's Reagan. So Reagan became the thirst trap. And Twitter decided that he was the Tumblr sexy man. He also won a couple of other Twitter, like Tumblr blank contests. And then Sans won the ultimate one, which was like a different one than the Tumblr sexy man one.
Okay, fine. So Cecil.
But then what happened... Now we cut to a couple months later, where Tumblr now has polls. Everyone is going batshit crazy with the polls. People are doing, like, psychological experiments on people in the polls. It's actually fascinating how this is working out, and I think next episode we're going to talk about this, because I do want to talk about the phenomenon of you cannot see what other people have voted for, but sometimes people will try to draw a dick, and they will get the balls the right size. And I just think that's interesting from a psychological perspective. No, because it's like, you don't know.
I get it.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's psychologically interesting. However, this meant that it was now time for Tumblr to do their own Sexy Man contest. And then, this is where Cecil comes in. Cecil won. Who is Cecil, you might ask? If you're listening to this, there's actually a 50% chance you know who Cecil is, because Cecil is from Welcome to Night Vale, the granddaddy of narrative podcasts from like 2012. Do you know about Welcome to Night Vale?
I know that it exists, but I haven't listened to it. Like, I know the...
That's all you need,
I know
baby.
the Wikipedia.
That's all you need, baby. What you need to know here is that Cecil has no, like, real canonical description. Cecil is like Goncharov in that his appearance is decided by the Tumblr hive mind.
Okay.
And Tumblr was like, you know what would be really funny? If Cecil won the Sexy Man competition. You know that, because that fits. And then, because it's like, this is the site where we come up with deranged shit based on nothing. This is a site where we make 15 million oncelers and then just ship them with each other. So Cecil should win. And Cecil won.
Cool.
That's
Good job.
And now we have a Tumblr sexy woman. There's now been multiple other Tumblr sexy blank competitions that are happening. I think the one that's going to end today or tomorrow is the Tumblr sexy woman competition, which is, it might just be the Tumblr woman competition, which I kind of think they should have kept the sexy in there, but that's none of my business. Which I believe is Vriska versus Marceline, and if Vriska doesn't win, I'm going to kill everybody on that site and myself.
Damn.
I'm kidding.
If anyone has their WoW of True bingo cards out, you can mark off Homestuck now.
Look, I'm just saying that Vriska deserves to win.
Okay. Can I just say, if somebody makes a WoW of True bingo card, that would be very fun, and I give you permission, and go for it. Please do that.
So, does that help you with
right.
the Cecil question?
That does help me, and then final bit of lore drop in this episode. So, I'm a big Jeopardy fan, and I learned a Jeopardy fact that I think that you would find fun.
Okay. Also, if you've got your bingo card, check off Jeopardy.
So, just to preface, do you know who Ken Jennings is?
Like, vaguely.
Yeah, so he won 74 games in a row on Jeopardy, like many years ago. That's still the longest streak. The second longest is Amy Schneider, my queen. And now he hosts Jeopardy. And I found out recently that his college roommate, do you want to guess who it was?
This could be anybody. It would be so funny. Just tell me.
Brandon Sanderson.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, the episode's over. I need to go think about that. Yeah, we're done here. Okay, I need to go think about this. I need to go lie on my bed and think about that.
But anyway, we have merch. wowtrue.com/merch. Please buy it. It's good. We have the sweatshirts and the totes and stuff because we were like, let's order it to make sure that it's okay before we have other people order it, and it fucking slaps. I did run my sweatshirt through the dryer, and it is totally fine. I think that's a great data point, and I also think a good data point is that I carried a lot of stuff in the tote, and it was fine.
Yeah, it's good merch. We bought it. We've tested it out.
Have you drank out of the mug?
I've drunk out of the mug. It's a great mug. It sure does hold things. Liquids? Great.
It sure is pink.
Yo, it is so pink. It sure does hold things. If you ever want to, like, intimidate someone on a Zoom call, I think it would be a really good mug to have with your coffee in it.
Yeah, because it says just kill them.
Yeah, I think it would be very scary for someone on the other side of the Zoom call, or at least they'd be like, what are you drinking out of? So, that could be a fun little, like, conversations starter with you and your interviewer or something like that, because that's a regular thing to do during a job interview. Anyway, wowtrue.com/merch.
I do have one last joke to send us out. So another thing that happened on the internet that we didn't talk about is that somebody who knows and they were roommates girl, like, came forward and was like, I'm going to tell her story. She doesn't want to be on the internet because she apparently is smarter than the rest of us, but maybe when she said, and they were roommates, she was talking about Ken Jennings and Brandon Sanderson. And on that note,
if you like this episode, tell a friend. Word of mouth is how we grow. Thank you to all of our patrons, and shout out specifically to Zoe, Bray, Andre, Thea, Brand, Gabriel, Lotta, Matt, Max, and Aaron's husband. If you want your name in the above or on our Twitter header, slide right into our Patreon at patreon.com/wowtrue, and check out our merch at wowtrue.com/merch. Shout out to audio editors Allison Mills and David Newtown, graphic designer and Canva warlock Eric Silver, who made our logo, Sam Rizer, who made our podcast music, and Tessa Farrow, who is transcribing our episodes. You can find us on Twitter as @wowtruepod and Instagram and Facebook as @wowtrue. Had your 15 seconds of internet fame? Slide right into our Twitter DMs and tell us about it. Also, seriously, go look at our merch. I spent like a while designing it. wowtrue.com/merch. It looks like fire, and you should buy it. Thank you. Until next time, let's get weird on the internet.